Hi everyone, I'm Elfowls, and welcome to another match analysis for the Newport Noctowls in Season 10 of the Uber Club League. Last time I covered my match against the Mighty Miltanks, which I did win to bring myself to 3-0 in the season. This video is coming out a little late just because I'm at the end of my college career, been busy, so working on catching up my videos. We'll see a couple come out probably in the next few days. For week 4, though, I was up against Chad and the WCL Steamrollers. Historically, a very strong team, and they have some big threats this season that live up to that legacy. Chad's team this season includes Chinchino, Tauros, Moltres Galler, Pinsir, Klefki, Glaceon, Eldegoss, Throw, Araquanid, Rhydon, and Slowking Galler. This draft team is actually a little out of date because I am recording a few weeks late, so a few trades have been made on Chad's team, but this is the one that I fought in week 4. It feels pretty cohesive, with a lot of his higher tier Pokemon being either very bulky offense style or filling more unique utility roles, so that defensive support really frees up room for all of his remaining picks to fill out those fast offense roles, which is making for a really good, diverse, balanced team. There isn't really like a big hole we can exploit or anything, and I'm actually looking at these 11 Pokemon on my opponent's side, and think that they all have a good chance of coming. It's going to be really hard to decide my brings. That said, I can't prep for literally everything without stretching my team a little too thin, so I need to cut off the expected brings somewhere. For that, I'll start with Araquanid, which can definitely be threatening. It has decently strong stabs for the matchup, and of course sets those valuable sticky webs. However, those stab moves are actually walled by Noivern, of all things, which can also use Defog to blow away those webs. Considering I've brought Noivern every week so far, I think Chad might see that matchup and decide Araquanid isn't worth it, especially on top of my electric type core that also just threatens it a ton. Next, I think Eldegoss will also be sitting out this match. Its main utility is probably stopping a Raichu sweep with its incredible special defense stat and resistance to electric, but it doesn't do much in return to it, and in fact it gives up a lot of free turns against some of my other Pokemon that can potentially set up on it, and that could be really dangerous for Chad. To be fair, I was building my Raichu set around this guy until I realized he's a little outclassed in the walling department by Slowbro. Yeah, and now that I have the least concerned threats out of the way, I'm going to get into what I'm most scared of right now. With an Assault Vest, Slowbro is a pretty good wall of Raichu, as well as a few other members of my team, namely Noivern and Aromatisse, and it has some of the best coverage you could ask for, so it can hit anything on my team back just so hard. Assault Vest is the set I'm expecting, but Slowbro can really just be as diverse as it wants to. No matter what it's doing, it can pivot in and out, taking hits for free and regenerating the health back while I struggle to find a safe switch in. I'm very scared of this guy. I'm still a little surprised that it's allowed in this format, but we're working with it. I'm also very scared of the Galarian Moltres, for which I have about one safe switch into across my whole team, that being specially defensive Aromatisse. Even that gets dicey if Moltres gets any of its boosts. With a Berserk boost plus maybe a second boost from Nasty Plot or Weakness Policy, nothing is taking its attacks well, and I'll have to start making sacks since Moltres also outspeeds a ton of my team at base 90. I'll need to keep it under control early to ensure I don't get fully swept by it. Next up is Tauros, which outspeeds a bunch of my team, has the coverage to hit anything hard, and it also has the bulk to take most hits and trade with whatever I might want to. Chad's been favoring it quite a bit, and I can definitely understand why. It's just a pretty good normal type with a lot of good coverage in this matchup. And Groudon, Rhydon is a ground type, and I think ground types are pretty important to fend off the electric type offense on my team. That core is just so threatening, I think, so Rhydon's got to be a bring. It's the main stop to Raichu running rampant with Rising Voltage, and even though I do have super effective coverage for it, Chad can use those turns to switch around and stall out electric terrain, and that's the main reason I'm worried about this guy. But it's also just bulky enough to sit in front of parts of my team and fire off a big hit. Next up, I do think Klefki is pretty good here. It has easy spikes set up, and that's great support for those big offensive threats Chad has. But I do think dual screens is a more likely bring here. With Light Screen and Foul Play, Klefki is actually able to stand up to Raichu and threaten it out with a potential KO. Foul Play and Priority Thunder Wave will also stop a lot of my other sweepers, so I think that's good insurance. And for the last bring, I'm expecting Glaceon, which is a Pokemon that I don't think is very good overall, but it does have the matchup here. Ice is pretty good coverage against my team, and the environment for this match is a bit too hostile for me to bring Lapras, which would otherwise be my best answer to this. Without Lapras, I'm going to have to start thinking about how to tank those Ice Beams off of the base 130 special attack stat. Crazy. That's the team I'm going to be expecting, those top 6, with a couple of other threats to account for. Chinchino is going to be a good normal type that outspeeds Raichu, but I think it would need to sub in for Tauros, and Tauros just feels like a better call. Chinchino just feels a bit weaker, and I think it has a worse matchup against Mudsdale, just because Stamina is kind of a crazy counter to those multi-hits. Throw is pretty bulky, and if I'm not careful, it might trade KOs with something important, but I do have good switching to it, and the same applies to Pinsir. I think a Choice Scarf would make sense if Pinsir showed up to be more of an offensive check to things, because I don't really see this guy wall breaking with both Mudsdale and Aromatisse as solid answers. So with all that in mind, I was most scared of the Slowking going on into this, so I started my team building off with something that can offensively pressure it. So that's going to be Decidueye, which is my pick, of course, to help deal with Slowking, since we just do so much damage to it with Poltergeist. That's the main reason it was brought, but with the way I built this guy, hopefully it will be accomplishing a lot versus the rest of the team. Swords Dance lets me set up and sweep, and Culver Berry is built with the idea of continuing a sweep when I would otherwise go down. With it, we can take a Tauros Throat Chop, Clefty Foul Play even after a Swords Dance boost, or a Chinchino knockoff and hopefully continue a sweep. Low Sweep is here because I actually have the potential to beat Tauros in a one-on-one, taking a Dark move and 2-hit KOing back while I outspeed on the second turn after that speed drop, and that's what the speed EVs are for on this set. Low Sweep with the Culver Berry is also decent insurance against the Moltres, which still beats Decidueye, but I can still get off an important speed drop to help the matchup for a revenge kill later. And lastly, not that I think it'll come up, but Decidueye might be the hardest Eldegoss counter, at least in this format. We set up on it for free, we're immune to all of its powder status moves, and don't take much damage from its actual attacks or coverage, so that's pretty cool. Next up is Pincurchin with a Terrain Extender, because I think Raichu has a lot of potential to sweep this team, and I want to give myself as many opportunities for that as possible. Pincurchin is actually solid here on its own, though. Rising Voltage stings most of Chad's team, and with our special attack investment, we actually have a shot at one-hit KOing max HP Rhydon with the Surf. Of course, we don't outspeed it, so this would have to catch it on the switch-in or something like that, but that's not unreasonable. I also think this is my best switch into Klefki. With the defensive investment, we don't really care about any of Klefki's attacks, while we either threaten back with a strong Rising Voltage, or maybe even set up mutual spikes. The special defense investment is also nice for Moltres, since we don't immediately fold to it and we can fight back against it. And to support both of these, I thought Aromatisse was a natural fit. Defensively, Aromatisse is a natural check team Moltres, taking most hits just fine and firing back with Moonblast for major damage. Aromatisse also takes Glaceon hits fairly well, and we have physical defense investment to almost always avoid the 2-hit KO from Tauros Body Slam. We can also pass Wishes on free turns, which could be important for a team that's lacking longevity so far. And offensively speaking, I would actually love to see Aromatisse set up Trick Room in this matchup as a support option to help maybe Pincurchin. Like I said, Pincurchin hits pretty hard, and Trick Room could turn it into basically a second Raichu if we need it. Chad might have a Slowking, but we have a slower King, so we're actually going to outspeed in Trick Room, guaranteed. It might not come up, but I might not click this move, but I don't need the move slot for anything else, so why not? Up next, we're fleshing out our defensive core with Mudsdale, and the set is pretty similar to what I've been doing all season, with the exception of Body Press over Toxic. Looking at the matchup, I feel like Toxic would only be useful against Eldegoss, which I could exploit in different ways anyway, and against everything else, it would just be more protective to attack, and Body Press gives Mudsdale a better option against the normal types in particular, especially after switching in on a move and grabbing a stamina boost or something like that. Mudsdale is pretty useful against those normal types, as well as Rhydon, Pinsir, Throw, or Klefki, so we just have a catch-all physical wall, and this Pokemon also takes advantage of Trick Room if we need that. Next up, we're going to pivot over to Raichu, and we're running a Nasty Plot set this time. I honestly don't see too many opportunities to set up, so I don't know if I'll be able to use the move, but it only takes one free turn to get off a pretty good sweep, and we can even potentially sweep without a boost anyway. Rising Voltage is the move to spam, and Psyshock is mostly there for a potential Eldegoss, while Grass Knot is used to hit Rhydon. With this set, Raichu is very threatening under electric terrain. If we're in a good position, the only thing Chad can do is either switch around to stall out the terrain, or more likely, pick a sack. I can see Raichu putting in a ton of work under extended terrain turns. And for the last slot, I chose Blaziken as a pivot and glue piece to make this team's offense a little more effective. I'm actually really excited about this set. It's a great opportunity to show off why Blaziken is so good. The main idea is to nuke something with overheat, and from there either pivot around with U-turn or keep up pressure with my other moves. Earthquake is mainly for Slowbro, and Vacuum Wave does crippling damage to the normal types while also allowing me to pick off other weakened threats. Expert Belt pushes a few calcs in my favor, such as a potential KO on No Bulk Chinchino after rocks, without having to deal with Life Orb damage, on top of the potential hazard damage from switching around. So that's the team, which I would say was built pretty offensively minded this time. Let's see if we can make that work in action. Alright, no Klefki in favor of both normal types, Tauros and Chinchino. That works for me. I feel like my offensive prep for Tauros will handle Chinchino just fine. For the lead, the thought process was that I wanted to put offensive pressure on immediately, so I think the best way to do that is with Blaziken. It'll either force something out, or force an aggressive option from something that beats me. Good luck to Chad. And that is going to be a Tauros in the lead slot. Not a huge problem. I have switched into something like a Body Slam or Earthquake, but I think I'm going to preserve Decidueye, especially to use later. That means Mudsdale is going to be the switch, so we are going to come in and tank the Body Slam, getting that stamina boost. So now it's my knee-jerk reaction to set rocks early, but I'm taking a look at Chad's team and realize that there's absolutely nothing that can switch into a boosted body press right now, and then press an advantage state afterwards. So I am going to do that, as I just click body press after this toxic. Tauros goes down to 11%. That's a huge hit. So now I feel like it's safe to go for rocks, since those stealth rocks will force a KO on Tauros later. And as I go for those, Chad does indeed switch to Moltres as the rocks go up. Once again, not a great matchup for Mudsdale, but this is fine. I have an answer. So it is going to be a switch to Aromatisse as I take a light Air Slash, actually, no Hurricane this time, which is interesting. From here, the Moltres can either keep up offensive pressure or switch out in fear of the Moonblast, and I think in either case, Wish is a good option to either keep myself healthy or pivot out the next turn. That turns out to be the right call since Slowking switches in to take a Moonblast, so that Wish goes up. I'm fearing the poison move here, so Mudsdale makes sense as the switch. And Slowking is actually going to set up a Trick Room as I get that back to full health with my Wish. Well, it's interesting. I mean, I appreciate it, Slowking. The only member of Chad's team slower than Mudsdale is this Slowking, so I think I'm just going to do horse things for the next 4 turns and start clicking buttons. And the Slowking will stand to hit a nasty Ice Beam, but right after that is going to take an Earthquake and go down right there. That is a huge threat out of the way. Rhydon is the Revenge, and honestly, I don't really want to switch anything into it under Trick Room, so I think I'm just going to go for damage here. And I'm going to go for the Body Press to knock it down a bit and go down to an Earthquake myself. Sacking Mudsdale this early, it does feel like a weird play. There's a Pincurchin switching. But Slowking just went down, and Tauros is going down to the rocks that I already have up. Mudsdale has done his job enough to the point that I feel comfortable playing without it for the rest of the match. Side note, I didn't calc that Mudsdale play at the time. I thought Body Press would do more damage with the defense boost, but it looks like now that Earthquake would have done more damage anyway, just by a few percent. Not a huge deal, but I guess the move choice was a little suboptimal there. But Trick Room is still up, so I did switch Pincurchin in here as the Revenge, going to try and use Surf with it. As I go for it though, the Rhydon does switch out, Tauros comes into rocks and goes down as I do not accomplish much. That was a good use of a sack to stall out a turn. That's a solid play by Chad there. Next up is going to be Glaceon, and I still have a turn of Trick Room, so I have no problem going for a Rising Voltage, solid damage, and then Ice Beam crits for a ton of damage. That crit really didn't matter too much. Now that Trick Room is over, I would have needed to switch out anyway, and so with that, Blaziken's going to be my answer, as Glaceon goes for a surprise Water Pulse. I honestly had no idea Glaceon got that coverage. I didn't think to check for water moves until this moment, but you know, it's fine. Blaziken can still do his job from his health. The safest play here is to just finish the Glaceon off with a Vacuum Wave, so even if that reveals a trick I had up my sleeve, I am going to take the KO with it. And the Revenge is going to be the Chinchino, so I'm assuming Chad has built it to be able to take a Vacuum Wave with some HP investment or something like that. but I'm just going to click it anyway. Blaziken has basically done its job, so as I go for it, Vacuum Wave is going to take Tichinio down to 9%, and then the triple axle does take me out. I like that as a play to potentially catch the Decidueye or something on a switch in. With 3 turns of terrain left, though, this makes Raichu the pretty free revenge. So as I'm going to go for a move, Chad does switch to Rhydon, and I actually did make a middle ground play with the Psyshock. Actually, I'm not sure why I did that in hindsight, because Grass Knot was always doing more damage to both Rhydon and Moltres, and Tichinio was going down to anything from its low health. Oh well, I guess. At least I got some damage on something. But now it's going to be time for a Grass Knot. And oh, it's going to be a Cinccino sack to Rocks again. Yet another sack to Rocks, so Mudsdale is actually racking up quite a few kills in this match. That's fine, I guess. I've really had a few free turns at this point to get some kind of setup going. I could have gotten a nasty plot up right there, but I just wasn't ready to risk that, and this seems like it'll be a sweep anyway. Moltres is actually going to be switching now. Rising Voltage is the easy play, but it actually reveals the Wackenberry to take the hit and then KO me back with that Fiery Wrath. Good bring by Chad, the Wackenberry. That's kind of hard to deal with now. This Moltres is pretty threatening. It outspeeds the rest of my team, and it did just get that Berserk boost. Decidueye is an option with the Culver Berry, but the Moltres could just go for Air Slash and KO me anyway. So the play here is going to be Aromatisse. I'll just have to dodge an Air Slash flinch. On this turn, I'm initially thinking just to go for the Moonblast straight away, but looking at the state of the game, I realized Trick Room is actually the better option here. Aromatisse will take out Moltres on the next turn, and then instead of getting revenged by the Rhydon, we'll actually outspeed it and take it out after that. Plus, if for some reason anything goes wrong, we still have the Pincurchin cleanup if Trick Room goes up. This play has a pretty low impact on the results, but it does preserve a +3 differential instead of losing Aromatisse for a +2, and it doesn't, introduce any extra risk, so why not go for it? So yeah, we do see the Moltres go for Air Slash for good damage, but there's no flinch, and I was able to get the Trick Room off. From here, that is pretty much game sealed. It's just one Moonblast to take out the Moltres, and then the revenge, of course, needs to be the Rhydon, and another Moonblast will take it out for the 3-0 victory. So GG to Chad. This was well fought, and I really liked a lot of your brings. Wackenberry Moltres was a great idea that just didn't quite have the resources to work in the end game, but it was pretty close to working out for you. On my end, I pointed out a few minor misplays that I made, but I'm pretty happy with how this game went overall. Mudsdale put in a ton of work in the early game, and then Pincurchin in the Trick Room set by Chad was funny, and Raichu got a chance to put on a bunch of offensive pressure, even if there wasn't really a sweep. No Decidueye today, but given that it was a utility check to a few specific Pokemon, we just didn't need it, and that's fine. As for my play overall, this game wasn't too exciting. I didn't need to make any exciting reads or anything like that, but that's the benefit of good team building and positioning, in that I didn't have to make any big plays to keep an advantage state. In the next video, I will be playing Zach and the Summit County Psyducks, who, like us at this point, were on a 4-0 winning streak for the season. Join me then to see how who can keep their perfect record, and that battle totally already hasn't happened yet. Yeah, you'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.